Welcome to Golden Fortune Leo, the channel where we greet the cosmos like a gym coach and ask it to add just 5 more honest reps to your heart. I'm your longtime researcher with one eye on star maps, one eye on human behavior, and a steady respect for what Buddhist teachers call the middle path. Today's focus is simple and not easy. Love wants to speak and pride is finally tired of running quality control. This is your October 2025 love reading, titled I Want to Speak My Truth to You, and yes, the title already told on them because someone who kept quiet long enough to mistake silence for strategy is about to open the door the whole way. So let's get clear in a single breath. Your person was afraid of your light because your light required growth, not applause. They studied you from the safe seats, tried to decode you with logic, treated your warmth like a pop quiz they hadn't revised for, then called it bad timing when the truth was basic fear. They typed and deleted more drafts than a novelist on a deadline, stared at your messages like museum pieces, and when they finally looked away they heard the echo of their own restraint. That echo is loud now. Here is the psychological core. We often avoid what confirms who we could be, not what threatens who we are. You met them as a mirror, not a judge, and they could not stand that your steadiness revealed their postponement. But October moves differently. The air sharpens, the fog thins, and communication stops negotiating with anxiety and starts reporting to love. In plain English, this means a message, a call, a conversation that is late but alive. Expect sincerity with some charming clumsiness. Think truth in sneakers, not tuxedo. The words may trip, yet the feeling will stand up straight. Underneath the astrology is a behavioral shift worth naming. They are moving from avoidant patterns toward secure connection. Fewer what-if spirals, more here is what I want. Part of that is your work too. You raised your standard from attention to intention, from fireworks to warmth, from testing loyalty to honoring your own boundaries. You stopped translating mixed signals into maybes. You learned that affection without accountability is weather and you want climate. That growth turned your energy from pursuit to reception, and now reception draws confession. Here is the spiritual thread. When we stop auditioning for love, we become eligible for it. Call it divine timing or the year of triumph 2025 if you like. Labels. What matters is the causal chain. Your maturity reset the field and their courage finally grew into the space you kept clean. Humor break because this is still Earth and we still need a laugh. If you catch yourself composing a victory speech, please close the Notes app. You are radiant, but the goal is reunion, not a courtroom. Let the truth breathe without cross-examination, and when they say they miss you, resist the sentence that starts with finally. Keep your crown on and your eyebrows calm. Another practical point: the social friction around your bond has been real. Maybe distance, maybe culture, maybe family opinions that demand footnotes you do not owe. But disapproval is not destiny, it is a stress test. Real love does not hide forever, it grows enough spine to go public. Your person is learning that the loudest objections often belong to the quietest lives. They are ready to say this is my person and to say it without a focus group. That readiness includes planning. I see a traditional streak in them that wants to do things correctly. Fewer improvisations, more structure, not a sprint to marriage yet a steady path that makes commitment make sense. The Buddhist angle is restraint without suppression, desire without grasping, protection without control. Grown people energy. Expect practical steps before speeches, clearing old ties, adjusting schedules, securing logistics. No grand performance on Monday and disappearance by Thursday. We do not do that here. Let's also name the mirror effect because twin energy or not, this is basic human psychology. What you found difficult this October, the air itself feels different, as if the season decided to edit its own script. The person who once hid behind polite silence has begun pacing at the edge of confession. Words are pressing against their ribs, demanding an exit, and this time the energy is not an apology tour. It is revelation. They want to tell you that you were their peace when they did not know how to rest. that your steadiness was the only quiet place left in a world full of noise. But it will not sound like a movie monologue. People who have lived too long in denial usually fumble when they try to tell the truth. Expect pauses, backtracking, maybe even a joke that arrives at the wrong moment. Still, the emotion beneath all that verbal clutter will be real. I have studied enough human behavior to know that love stories rarely end from hatred, they collapse under hesitation. People keep waiting for the right time to speak until time itself decides it has better things to do. This person no longer wants to wait. The cosmic timing is undeniable. You, Leo, have evolved from the chaser to what I like to call the quiet sovereign. You no longer audition for affection. You broadcast integrity. You stopped measuring your worth by who texts first, and now truth is the one showing up uninvited. Somewhere in the background of this transformation, your person felt the gravitational pull shift. You became still, and their restlessness began. The deeper layer here is the mirror effect. The obsession energy that neither of you admits out loud is mutual. When two souls vibrate at the same frequency, even silence becomes a dialogue. Every post you make carries a hidden line they swear is meant for them. They check who liked your photo, who commented, who might be standing too close in that picture. It is not surveillance, it is nostalgia dressed as curiosity. They are watching you the way people watch a sunrise they once took for granted, half in awe, half in regret. What they find hardest to look at is not your beauty but your balance. Your confidence, your calm independence, your refusal to beg for clarity have turned you into what psychologists call a self-sufficient attachment. You no longer need reassurance, you prefer reciprocity. They sense that shift, and it pulls them back like gravity because it reminds them of what they were too afraid to become. The universe arranged this entire encounter as a mirror test. Every quality you once admired in them, courage, charm, composure, you have now built inside yourself. And every weakness you condemned, indecision, avoidance, pride, you have had to exorcise from your own psyche. That is twin flame mathematics in its pure form, two souls learning identical lessons from opposite sides of the same equation. Here comes the turning point, what the tarot calls the fool's leap. Do not confuse the fool with foolishness. The archetype is faith without spreadsheet logic. Your person has reached the intellectual cliff. They have drafted every pro and con list possible, imagined each humiliating scenario, rehearsed every possible rejection speech, and the feeling still refuses to leave. If I don't try, I'll regret it forever is now the line looping in their head. The cosmos is orchestrating what no ego could stage, a gentle but undeniable recalibration. It is as if the universe took their face between its hands and said, "Look there, that's the direction you were avoiding." You have been patient through all this, Leo, painfully patient. You did the quiet work of detaching without bitterness. You released the outcome but kept the compassion. That is what spiritual maturity looks like when astrology meets psychology. The universe calls that vibration a mark of the chosen ones. It is not a label of superiority, it is a signal of endurance. You learned that real strength is not the roar but the pause before it. That patience has rewritten your frequency so that what returns to you must match your peace, not your pain. The year of triumph 2025 was never meant to be a headline about money or fame, it is about emotional vindication. The world is beginning to learn that Leo's kindness is not naivete. It is strategic grace. You have been proving, in real time, that compassion can coexist with boundaries and that forgiveness does not mean returning to chaos. When people underestimated you, they mistook warmth for weakness. But you knew better. You were not losing, you were training. So yes, this person is coming back not to repeat a story but to rewrite it. They are discarding the ego narrative that whispered, "I'm not enough," and replacing it with the grown-up truth that love is the only risk worth taking. They are starting to understand what philosophers and therapists have said for centuries: security does not come from control, it comes from connection. Their leap is not just toward you but toward their own emotional adulthood. You, meanwhile, have learned the rare art of staying luminous without turning into a spotlight for someone else's insecurity. That makes you magnetic. Even your silence glows. There is humor in how the universe works. The moment you stop chasing, your absence becomes the loudest sound in their life. They will describe it as intuition or divine sign, but you and I know it is psychology. 101 Scarcity breeds focus. When they arrive, take note of the tone. It will carry both nervous laughter and genuine depth. The delivery may sound like a badly edited podcast, hesitations, restarts, half sentences, but do not dismiss it. Behind the awkward phrasing is an emotional evolution. They are learning to replace performance with presence. And when they finally say what needed saying, it will feel less like a declaration and more like an exhale. As someone who has spent years studying relationships, I can tell you this: love that survives the death of ego tends to last. When both people have faced their shadows and chosen transparency over tactics, something sacred emerges. This October is that threshold for you, Leo. The conversation you've been waiting for may not come with fireworks, but it will come with truth, and truth has its own kind of light. So laugh when they stumble. Make them tea instead of giving them a lecture. Let them rediscover that your strength was never about dominance, it was about stability. Remind them, gently, that you are not the prize they win but the partner they meet halfway. Because the highest form of Leo energy is not performance, it is presence, generous and self-aware. By the time the month closes, both of you will have learned that love is not found in grand gestures but in quiet timing, in the courage to speak before perfection arrives, in the humility to risk being misunderstood. That is the real leap of faith. And as you step into it, remember this small truth I tell all my clients: the universe does not reward those who wait endlessly, it rewards those who grow while waiting. That growth, Leo, is your triumph. The rest is just confirmation. Every Leo love story contains a kind of cinematic excess, and this one could have been written by Shakespeare if he had ever studied astrology. It is forbidden in all the classic ways that make a story interesting: the distance too far to bridge, the disapproving parents, the religion that doesn't translate well at the dinner table, the social circles that whisper in low tones about what cannot last. Yet the thing about Leo energy is that it refuses to take impossible as a final answer. Logic may win arguments, but it rarely wins over the heart. Somewhere along the way, people around this connection appointed themselves narrators of a story they did not write. They said it was doomed. They offered warnings as though love could be prevented by careful planning. For a while, your person believed them. They took advice from people who had never risked anything greater than comfort. But love has a survival instinct that outsmarts common sense. Real love mutates under pressure, it becomes rebellion disguised as loyalty. It learns how to thrive in the shade where approval cannot reach. And in that quiet defiance, this person found clarity. They are now ready to stand and say, "This is my person," not because the fear is gone but because the fear of losing you finally outweighs the fear of being judged. That shift is the purest form of alchemy a Leo could inspire, transforming resistance into courage and turning anxiety into action. If you look closely, this moment also signals what I would call the divine masculine awakening, though it is less mystical than it sounds. It is the psychological and spiritual maturing of someone who used to mistake detachment for power. The energy now is protective, grounded, and finally emotionally available. This is not the same person who once hid behind control. Life has humbled them, reshaped them, cracked the armor they mistook for identity. They have learned what every grown heart must, that real strength is not about guarding against vulnerability but standing still while it happens. They are thinking about commitment, and not the Pinterest version with candlelight and violins, but the kind that shows up every day, pays the emotional rent on time, and asks what needs fixing before it breaks. Marriage energy hums here, yet there is no haste. They plan instead of improvise, they act instead of promise. Psychologically, this is textbook progress, moving from avoidant attachment to secure connection, trading self-protection for emotional reciprocity. If a therapist were grading their growth, they would get a solid A-, mostly because they are still learning not to over-explain. Spiritually, they are realizing that control does not equal safety. That realization alone could save half of modern relationships. They are beginning to practice what Buddhist psychology calls the release of grasping, the art of giving without claiming, of loving without owning. That lesson is freedom disguised as surrender. For Leo, that is the most fluent dialect of intimacy. There is generous love without cages. Now, if we bring humor back into the frame, think of it this way: the divine masculine who once measured affection by how many texts he ignored is now the same person rereading your old messages like sacred scripture. The same individual who swore they didn't believe in labels now has a 5-year plan with you as chapter 1. That is what happens when ego stops running the show, reality takes over, and reality is a lot more romantic than people admit. Still, before celebration comes the test of timing, the universe's favorite way to stretch both patience and sanity. Divine timing is the most annoying teacher in the cosmos because it doesn't negotiate. You can't rush it, you can't trick it, you can only sync with it. The delay you experienced was not a punishment but a curriculum. Both of you needed to earn independence before reunion. You had to prove to yourself that you could live a full life without orbiting around their gravity. That's the part most people miss. Love that isn't chosen freely isn't love, it's dependency. The universe delayed this connection until both of you could stand tall on separate foundations. Meanwhile, your person had their own syllabus. They had to confront the illusion of control, that exhausting belief that outcomes can be scripted if one just tries hard enough. They micromanaged emotions the way some people micromanage spreadsheets, only to discover that feelings are not employees, they are weather. Life humbled them through missed chances and empty victories. Now, they approach you differently, quietly, deliberately, stripped of the old bravado. You may begin to notice the small signals first: dreams that feel too vivid to dismiss, songs on the radio that answer your thoughts, moments when you check the time and it's always that same number you both shared once. These are not coincidences but what I call frequency alignments, the universe's version of debugging human stubbornness. The hangman reversed suggests that the fog is finally lifting. They see the bigger picture not as a fantasy but as a blueprint. Their old narrative of maybe someday is being replaced by this is happening now. In the plainest language, they are awake. You are too. The connection that once felt like a cosmic prank is revealing itself as design. It took silence to teach both of you the grammar of timing, and it took separation to remind you what presence means. Here's the practical lesson for Leo: timing is not about delay, it is about preparation. You cannot bake bread faster by turning up the heat, you only burn the crust. The same applies to destiny. By waiting, both of you learn skills that will sustain the connection once it arrives: communication, patience, humor, humility. And humor will matter. Because even soulmates need to laugh about how ridiculous the journey was. One day you'll look back and say, we really almost let Wi-Fi signals and other people's opinions ruin divine timing. That sentence alone will be worth the wait. So the forbidden has become the fated, the hesitant has become the devoted, and the impatient have become wise. In this chapter of your story, Leo, the universe is not testing you anymore, it is rewarding your endurance. The timing was never late, it was precise. The courage you showed by waiting without bitterness is the same courage your partner is now mirroring back to you. What comes next is not a repetition of the past but a completely new pattern: love without disguise, commitment without control, destiny without delay. That is the quiet brilliance of a Leo triumphing at last over time itself. The air around this connection has changed, Leo. Communication is no longer a theory, it's movement, it's vibration, it's a message that finally breaks through the static. A call, a confession, perhaps a short text that reads simply, "I miss you." It won't come wrapped in poetry or decorated with grand declarations. It will sound simple, but behind those 3 words sits the weight of every night they didn't say it. Expect emotion, not perfection. The truth has never been a smooth talker, it usually stumbles out of trembling lips and uneven breath. But remember this, truth is the most expensive thing pride can buy. It costs someone the illusion of control, and your person has finally decided the price is worth paying. For many of you, this is the turning of the wheel, reconciliation not born of desperation, but of divine timing. It's not an impulsive fix, it's alignment. The cards show a death and an awakening. The death card here isn't the closing of a door, it's the gentle, necessary dismantling of an old house so that a new one can be built on the same foundation, but this time, without termites of ego and fear. The Ace of Pentacles follows like sunrise after a storm. It's new stability, new trust, and a kind of respect that doesn't need to be declared. This is what happens when 2 people stop auditioning for love and start being themselves inside it. For Leo, who has always danced between passion and pride, this is the quiet revolution. Let's go deeper, because astrology without psychology is just decoration. This relationship has been a living course in projection. Everything you accused them of was a mirror of your own hesitation. You called them emotionally unavailable, yet you were the one hiding behind humor and independence, making sure no one saw the vulnerable layers under your charisma. You said they ran from intimacy, but maybe you were the one who stopped reaching first. That's why this connection never lost its pull, because it wasn't built on halves trying to complete each other. It was 2 whole beings finally learning how to meet without losing themselves. The real lesson of 2025 for Leo is emotional intelligence. You are learning to love bravely without surrendering your boundaries. To see love not as a rescue mission, but as a conscious choice made by 2 stable souls. You've learned that love without self-respect becomes dependency, and self-respect without vulnerability becomes isolation. The goal is the middle way, the wisdom the Buddha taught, to love without clinging, to forgive without amnesia, to trust without abandoning reason. That balance is your crown now. Now, let's talk destiny, because this entire reading feels orchestrated. You and this person belong to a rare category I call the chosen ones, souls who didn't come here for easy love stories. You chose the difficult curriculum, the relationships that refine your soul like fire tempers metal. You meet people who reflect both your brilliance and your shadow, forcing you to evolve whether you like it or not. The universe doesn't give Leo light work, it gives Leo legacy work. And that's what this love has been, a forge for your transformation. The year of triumph 2025 is the reward cycle. After years of emotional endurance, the universe is saying, now you can receive. This doesn't only mean romance, it's about alignment in every sense, relationships, career, purpose, even the quiet moments when you realize you're finally at peace in your own skin. Opportunities will come. Synchronicities will multiply. You'll begin to see life lining up like constellations, each event a point of light leading towards something bigger. But stay grounded, Leo. The sun may be your ruler, but even the sun sets so others can shine. Remember that leadership isn't about dominance, it's about balance. You don't need to be the brightest in every room, sometimes wisdom is the light that glows softly and lets others find their way. And since we were being serious, let's also be human. Because love without laughter is just unpaid emotional labor. You know that friend who says, if they really wanted to, they would. Ask them to explain Mercury retrograde. Sometimes people want to and the universe just shuts off their Wi-Fi for soul maintenance. Timing is rarely convenient, it's cosmically comedic. So when this person finally opens up, resist the urge to roll your eyes and say, "Took you long enough." Just smile the way a cat does after catching a mouse of truth it saw coming a mile away. You knew this moment would arrive. You sensed it. The sun doesn't chase dawn, it waits for it. This October reading isn't selling a fantasy, it's describing alignment. You've altered your gravitational pull. You no longer attract chaos wearing the costume of passion. You attract peace disguised as destiny. When love returns, and it will, you won't meet it with old survival reflexes. You'll meet it as an equal, not a rescuer, not a victim, but as someone who understands that love is a collaboration, not a correction. The story isn't they came back. The story is I stayed centered long enough for love to grow courageous. That's your triumph, the victory of stability over drama, of clarity over noise. By now, you've probably realized that the ending of this cycle isn't about reunion alone. It's about renewal, the kind that makes you look at life differently. When someone says they love you, you'll no longer ask, why? You'll ask, can we build something with this? You've grown beyond the fairy tales of youth and into the architecture of partnership. You've learned that love is not about finding your other half, it's about building a whole world with another whole person. As we close, remember this one truth, love isn't about possession, it's about recognition. You've recognized yourself, and that's why everything around you is shifting to mirror that realization. The universe doesn't give us what we want, it gives us what matches our vibration. And your vibration now says peace, purpose, and presence. So, Leo, take this as your invitation to live, not just wait. Go outside. Laugh more. Dance even when no one's watching, especially when no one's watching. Read books that make you question yourself. Let people surprise you again. The universe favors movement, and joy is still the most magnetic energy you can emit. You've entered the year of triumph 2025, the year your truth becomes currency, your patience becomes power, and your story becomes proof that faith has measurable results. You are not chasing fate anymore, you are embodying it. You've become what you were always meant to be, a living reminder that love, courage, and humor can coexist. And to all the chosen ones listening, remember that your patience wasn't punishment, it was training. You were never waiting for love. Love was waiting for you to evolve enough to hold it properly. If this message resonates, let it sink into your week. Reflect on it, laugh at its accuracy, maybe journal a little about it. Don't overanalyze it, just live it. And if you felt guided, share it, like it, and subscribe to the channel Golden Fortune Leo, where the stars speak plainly, where philosophy meets fire, and where we remember that destiny is not shouted, it's whispered. Listen close, Leo. The next chapter of your story is already calling your name.